This is Out of the Box with your host, Jonathan Clark. Out of the Box, Sunday nights at 9 on Q1043.
Okay, there is a new documentary film. It's called Ron Delsener Presents. Ron Delsener Presents film.com/watch is where you can see it in theaters nationwide May 30th. Available to stream later this year, but go to the Quad Cinema. Do I have this right, Rod? You were born and raised in Queens, New York?
Yeah, but I didn't know it was that way. In fact, my mother said when she looked around at me, she turned around because she was talking to me. Right, she just came out of her womb. And she said, it's a hot day, the hottest day in the world. And my father picked it up and he ran down and put it in the papers, and it really was. I was the biggest baby in those days in Astoria.
Wow, fantastic!
And I was 12 pounds.
That is big.
So he put it in the paper. Now, I never was when it was 12 pounds. Not even when I was born. I mean, after born or whatever.
Well, you beat me. I was 9 pounds, and that was considered big.
I was the fattest. Now I'm the skinniest person in the world. I try very hard to eat anything just to get fat. And Diane helps me all the day. She stuffs me with all kinds of crap, like James and truck and shit. But I eat it, and I look still skinny.
Well, you look great, and your name, Ron Delsener, our listeners and our viewers have heard on the radio for like multiple decades. Ron Delsener here, along with director and producer Jake Sumner. Ron, I need to know, how much money in total did you make for auctioning off the Beatles' bed sheets and their cigarette butts after their appearance here in New York in 1964? Was it hundreds? Was it thousands? How much did you make? Come on.
Seriously?
Yeah.
It wasn't that big because a lot of the stuff was shipped. I had a thing with Murray the K.
Legend, yep.
Murray the K. I did it at some place. I think it was a place like disco place.
Oh, okay.
And you probably know that name. It was really like what do you call animals?
It's a nightclub, right?
Nightclub, but it was like animals, whatever it was. So I pull out the car, with the guy. We pull out all the stuff in the back of the car, and people attack the back of the car. And of course, they think like somebody's in there from the Beatles.
Ah,
so
right.
Away and pushing the car up and down. I'm in the car trying to get out of the car. So finally, I just run like hell, get in there, and I said, Murray, get going, will you please? These guys are going to tear the place apart. And Murray the K here. And what was his wife's name?
I don't know.
Something the K.
Well, talk about that show, because the Beatles at Forest Hill Stadium, you were involved in that show, right?
Yeah. I was working with them because we had him for Don
Friedman.
Don, yeah. We know we were coming them to play. And so they had a guy, Derek
Taylor, the publicist, right?
Derek Taylor.
Yeah.
He was the guy that I had to see. So when they came to the Delmonico Hotel, Delmonico, I had to say this guy. And he says, come along with us. And we did a thing, and the Beatles were there, and it being a Q&A.
Yeah.
It was so packed. So after that, we had a good laugh. And then we did the show.
Fantastic show. Full disclosure, my father and mother took me and my 4 brothers and sisters to the Beatles at Forest Hill Stadium. Do you believe that?
No.
What kind of parents were they? I'm sure I was like 4 or 5 years old. But here's what I remember, and I was telling Jake this earlier. I remember just screaming girls, and then I started crying to my dad. Why? Because I couldn't hear the music. I couldn't hear the music, but it was like I can now say that was my very first concert, seeing the Beatles at Forest Hill Stadium.
Oh God! Well, you're right about that. When they came out, it was one screech. It was like something. It was a noise, a big noise that I'm holding like this backstage. And then
Well, it's like that now, like at a Taylor Swift concert, when you have people that are 14, 15 years old, something like that, all screaming with the same type of voice at the same, frequency. It's like louder than a jet. I mean, it's crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just had my ears the other day, plugged out. No, I went to oh, I was doing something or whatever it was, and I had my ears because they were screaming, so I went to somebody, "Take my ears, will you please?" I said, well, they have to be cleaned out, number one.
But you got to get the wax out, right? Yeah.
Wax, I had wax only.
Yeah.
I had the wax all over the place. I could light a candle on my
Well,
finger.
at that show and many shows in that period, and even later on into the 60s, the rock concert experience was nowhere what it's like these days. I mean, the Beatles at Forest Hill Stadium, you couldn't hear the music. The Beatles could not hear themselves because of the monitors and the PA systems, but you were really, pioneering and ushering in this new sort of modern concert experience where people can go to a show and they can actually hear the music. The musicians on stage can hear what they're playing.
Yeah, but it was done again, in what's the field of the Yankees? Shea. They went to Shea with, what's his name again?
The other promoter.
You know him?
Who's the other promoter?
Howard Stein?
No, who promoted the Beatles at Shea.
Sid Bernstein.
Sid Bernstein was a good friend to Abe. Abe was the jewelry man. So he'd go down to the jewelry man and see Abe, and he'd give him some money. That's how he got the money. That's how he got to do the show over me. But I was glad he did, because the acoustics, like at a fight or a baseball game. Oh no, it's like a 10th out. They had no great audio. Nothing.
Yeah.
They had these posters going up like a baseball game. Baker on second base here is Tony Minotti. And I say, who the hell is... And it wasn't no one's what?
Yeah.
It was a bummer. I walked out, by the way. I was pissed. I said, who the fuck did the round? They do the cheap. They didn't do it right. You have to do it right.
Yeah, you absolutely do.
Never going to be seen again,
Yeah, Jake. Now, you are Sting's son, if I have that correct. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, sometimes.
And I didn't know that, and I know that. Yeah. But so wait, so you grew? How did you know? How did you and Ron connect? Was it just?
Tell you that.
Okay.
We were eating at a hamburger place, and he stopped. He says, "Jesus Christ, I want to get a hamburger." And that's Ron Delsener, and he came up. That's how we went. He likes to eat where we go.
I do like to eat.
Yes,
he's right about that.
Right.
That's
no,
not
I love
how
him. I tease him all the time.
But Jake, you're the director and the producer for this documentary on Ron. And so, how did you guys? I mean, I know you've known him for a long time.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, kind of the way it's like a colleague.
Well, he let it to me when he was a kid.
That's true. I'll get to that.
Yeah.
I kind of knew Ronnie the way that, like your dad's work colleagues. So I would be on the road a lot as a kid. And Ron Delsener was the guy in New York. And when we were here on tours, I'd be on the U.S. legs of tours, and Ron would, help get me and my sister tickets to stuff. So I remember, I think the Ringling Brothers Circus was, one.
Oh, fantastic.
And then the Knicks. And actually in Ron's basement, we found a thank you letter that I wrote to Ron.
Oh my God! Fantastic.
Dear Mr. Delsener, I think I must have been 8 years old because he got me.
Well, you were raised properly. You sent a thank you note, which is very important.
I think I drew him a picture of some Knicks, and then talked about. I think he got us really good seats, so I knew Ron in this way. And then over the years, when I'd see Ron at various events or shows, he always had these kind of amazing, larger-than-life stories about Hendrix or the Beatles or eating pizza with Elton John. They would just kind of So I thought, wow, this guy's a very interesting person, amazing stories. What if we kind of collected all these stories, and it kind of becomes like a history of live music? So it took a little convincing. It took time.
Of course.
It took years.
Do it right.
Spending a lot of time in Ron's basement, going through all his materials. He has a lot of archival, incredible rock and roll memorabilia. We had Ron sit in a chair in the Beacon Theater for a couple of days. We fed him. We did this great interview with Ron over a period of days to tell his story. It's been a great project. It's been a real journey.
Well, Jake is the director and the producer of Ron Delsener Presents Film, and you can watch that or go find out where it's playing, rondelsenerpresentsfilm.com/watch. So many amazing shows over the years. Ron, Patti Smith at the Palladium, a venue that you really propelled into, the limelight, became so famous for so many years. David Bowie at Carnegie Hall.
That was a tough one to get, by the way. They didn't want that platform because he thought he was like a freak.
Right, yeah.
So I said to the people, look, man, I'm going to sue you for this. This
right.
guy that's his costumes.
Yeah.
Don't you understand what he's doing here?
You had to convince them to, tell them that
sometimes you get it. They don't want this person because he's the wrong kind of person. They were starting going to that way, and that would really throw down the music business. You can't do things like that. This guy, because he's dressed with spankles on, and he's not the right person. I'm going, what's going to happen?
Androgyny and all that, yeah.
Pete Seeger, too, and those guys.
Well, as if memory serves me right, the first time I heard a radio commercial about a concert where it says Ron Delsener presents was your show. You know what I mean? And all our listeners over the decades have heard your commercials for shows that you were doing, and I want to talk about one in particular, Simon and Garfunkel in Central Park. Really behind the scenes look at how that all came together in the documentary. I mean, what an absolute event, and it took some convincing. Well, and there's interviews with Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel, new ones, talking about that. But just talk about Simon and Garfunkel in Central Park. I mean, what an event.
Well, I called Artie. No, I didn't call it. I called Paul. Paul, yeah, Artie. Artie came later because I was just going to do Paul. But then I said, no, I can't.
Yeah, originally it was like, let's do Paul Simon in the park, correct. And then, yeah.
Correct. So it got into the other thing, and then I called Lauren Michaels. I said, look, I don't know about video stuff, but I know about doing shows. This is going to be a smash hit, and I'm going to let you get somebody from London. Of course, I know there's a good line. He's got a good guy in London to come over. I forget his name. He's still all right. To do the billing. It's fine for it. And it worked out great. So. There was they said there was 400,000 people. I don't believe that.
It was more.
500,000.
It was more.
Something like that. Some crazy things, yeah.
I mean, you look at the footage, it's just bananas, We
got word from Japan, right? Right, Jake? We got word that Japan wanted to see it. Did you know that? Yeah.
Well, they went on a tour after that show, right?
You got them back together, basically, right? Yeah.
Sure. That's what happened.
Jake, it's amazing the number of huge artists you have participating in this film, talking about Ron and their experience with him over the years. John Bon Jovi, Bruce Springsteen, Stevie Van Zandt, Billy Joel, Simon and Garfunkel, Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, Bette Midler. Getting all of these people organized and gathered to speak on camera, that's a job in itself. I mean, that's like days and days of emails and phone calls and texts. And
it was that, but actually that was the easy part. I think a lot of people wanted to... in fact, I'm not going to name names, but there were some artists that reached out to us.
Yeah.
They knew there was a documentary about Ron going on, and they wanted to be part of it. Because I think a lot of these artists that you mentioned, Ron gave them their first break.
Yeah.
And a lot of those, most of these artists we covered were kind of, tri-state area kind of acts, people from New York, New Jersey. So Simon and Garfunkel, Bruce, Billy, obviously.
And what I noticed watching the film was a lot of those artists that I just named, I just listed, were like, they really felt that they hadn't made it until they had played for Ron in New York City.
That was the experience of speaking to everyone. It was very much Ron. They may have been playing clubs, very small venues, but the next step up was working with Ron. So I think there is a lot of, there's a great deal of gratitude toward Ron. But then I think what's interesting, too, is speaking to everyone. Ron stayed in touch with all these acts.
But I got a lot of pressure from the Parks Department. Excuse me, next second. The Parks Department.
Get on that mic, Ron. Get on that mic.
Who was the park
Commissioner?
Whatever it was that day? Who was on? There was always 3 or 4 guys I knew, but they'd be fine and somebody else came along. But the guy said to me, you know something, I'm tired of seeing these kids, this perk would have a lot of pimple kids running around. Why don't you do something different? He says to me, what do you mean? Well, do something like 5 minutes of Simon Garfunkel or something like that, he says to me. Something better. So I said, all right. So I come back with Paul Simon. And I called Paul and he says, well, let me ask Artie, I don't know. So I said, come on, this is a great idea, I think. Okay, so they both of them say too. And then the Parks Department loved the idea. But it worked out okay.
It sure did. I want to throw out some names to you, and if a anecdote or a memory comes to mind right off the top of your head, just hit me with it. Pete Townsend and or Keith Moon. Anything that comes to mind.
Wait, Pete Townsend or what? Who?
Or Keith Moon.
Keith Moon.
Anything come to mind?
Because he was front to me. He came to do a show with me in London when he went into the pond and jumped off. He was crazy. He's rowing on a boat on a muddy day, and the rain is coming down. I've got Melanie there playing there. I got the guy with the drummers. What's his name? Who played? Afro-American guy. Played. I had everybody. If I wish I had a drown, what it was.
Well, you did a Schaefer series in London, right? You moved it
so
to...
I brought it. So I brought it to the UK.
Joe Cocker you had on there?
Joe Cocker and his band, with the guys from Africa. Raining like a son of a bitch. Melanie closes the show. She just died a few years ago.
Right, yeah.
And a lot of other stars were. And who comes down there because he wants to be in it? He jumps right in the pond. It's the gentleman who played the drummers for
Keith Moon.
That's right. and he jumps into this pond and he says, "Gag! What's that smell here?" Pow! He guns right into the fucking dons. He's swimming across like this, trying to get across. People are laughing, and I'm going, "What the hell is this guy doing?" He's crazy.
Unbelievable.
And then he comes along because the piano man comes along. Who's the hottest guy at that time is?
Billy Joel.
No.
Elton.
Elton John comes. He pushes away. I'm going to play with these guys too. And he comes along. You'll see in the movie, if we have it, he comes and plays the piano. And it's great to see that going on. So these things going back and forth with London and New York and all these things, and it's in a storm and terrible rain and mud. And last time you'll see.
Well, you did a show in London that's going to be a rainy event.
Oh, yeah.
Outdoor shows in London. That's
How about, Ron, a memory of Greg Allman or Dickie Betts?
Well, Dickie Betts, because he was nuts. He was drunk all the time, and I'd say, "Will you stop that, for Christ's sake?" I mean, if you're a good guy, let's go. He likes to play golf. He likes to smoke cigars. So we got him clean for a long time, and he was really great, and I felt sorry for him.
Yeah.
I felt sorry for him.
How about Jagger or Richards? Anything come to mind right away?
They're both incredible. Jagger looks like an old me. Because I can dance like him, we used to see me go. But
I've seen you dance.
He likes like an old me, so I go, you know what? I tell him, get out there and act like Tina Turner. When Mick goes out, I said, give me the Tina Turner thing.
Fantastic.
It's funny because they're very, very good at what they do, and I try to copy, and no one can do what they do.
Okay, how about Jimmy Page or Robert Plant?
Jimmy Page, I have his guitar. I won it at a something. I won it at it was a benefit. It was a benefit. I got a beautiful Jimmy Page guitar.
Wow!
I built everybody else. It's in a case, a purple. Feline.
What were your interactions like with Jimmy Page or Robert Plant back in the day, like in the 70s?
You got to go with their manager, like this.
Oh, Peter Grant?
Oh, yeah.
Did he do that to you? Did he beat you up?
No. I saw him beat a lot of guys up, but then he wrote me, "Oh, no, I don't want to do that." Okay, just calm down.
He was a big man.
He was a wrestler, wasn't he?
Yeah. Ron Delsener, you are a legend, man. So
I don't
great.
remember everything right now. It's really,
That's
really
okay.
tough.
Who does, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, you fake it.
Ron Delsener, the film is Ron Delsener Presents. You can go to rondelsenerpresentsfilm.com/watch to find out where and when you can watch it. It'll be available to stream later this year. So Ron Delsener, Jake Sumner, Diane.
Shout out to Diane.
Thank you so much.
They worked hard, too.
And you're the best, Ron. Guys, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
This is Out of the Box with your host, Jonathan Clark. Out of the Box, Sunday nights at 9 on Q1043.